Hey scientists! Last week in science you guys learned all about birds, and this week we're going to move on to our next animal, which are snails. So we're going to start by reading about 2 different types of snails, and then at the end of our video I have a fun project that you can try out at home.
Okay, so we're going to start by reading from our science book. This section is called Water and Land Snails. So we're going to learn about this new animal called snails, and we're going to read about the 2 different types. Some snails live in water, and some live in land. You might have seen snails before. Let's start to read about them. Snails are animals. Where do you find snails? Some snails live in water. They live in fresh water or salt water. Some snails live on land in moist places. That word moist. Moist means a little bit wet. It cannot be totally dry. It needs to be a little bit wet. A garden is one place for land snails. A garden is a great place for land snails to live because gardens are moist. They're a little bit wet. Snails have a shell and a foot. Do you think they have feet like us? I don't think so. Can you see the shell? Can you see the foot? The foot helps the snail move. So this part of the snail is actually called the foot. So it's called the foot because just like our feet, it helps the snail move. So it looks different than our feet, but it's called the foot. All snails have a mouth. Snails scrape food into their mouth. We can see this snail munching on this leaf, and it's using its mouth to scrape the food to eat it. Snails also have tentacles. Look on the snail's head. Do you see the tentacles? So right here, these little pointy things, these are called the tentacles of the snail. All snails have these tentacles. Let's read about what they do. The tentacles sense food, air, and light. What else do tentacles sense? So these really special body parts on a snail, they're like this. They stick out of the snail's head. They're called the tentacles. And they help the snail see or feel what's around them. So they use them to help feel for food. They can feel air and they can sense light. It's pretty cool. How are these snails the same? How are they different? So we can see 4 different pictures of different snails. I can see the similarities. They all have shells. They all have tentacles. And they all have the foot on the bottom of their body. But can you see how they're different? I can tell that they're different because their shells are different shapes, different colors, different patterns on them. Their bodies are different colors. So snails can look very different. There's all different types of snails. So we're going to stop there with our reading. And next, since we just learned all about snails, how they look, their different body parts, we are going to do a little project to show what we just learned about snails.
So for our snail project, all you need is a marker or a pencil, a piece of paper, any kind of paper. It can be plain white paper, lined paper, or I have a piece of orange construction paper, and a pair of scissors. You don't need the scissors. You can just do your drawing without cutting it out. That works too. So I have a paper down here with all of the different body parts we just learned about that snails have that make them special. So we're gonna make our own snail, and we're gonna label the parts inside of our drawing, and then we can cut it out and see what it looks like. So I'm gonna start with my drawing. I'm going to show you guys. All right, so first I'm going to draw the body of the snail. So I'm gonna, it's kind of squiggly. You can kind of do a long shape like this. And then don't forget its head goes up like that. So next I'm gonna draw the tentacles. We learned that the tentacles come out of its head and they help the snail sense what's around them. And then we learned that snails have shells. So in our book, we saw a couple different kinds of snail shells. My favorite that I like the best are the round shells. And they kind of have a squiggly pattern on the inside like this. I think these are pretty cool. So here is my picture. Next, I'm gonna label the different parts that we learned about the snail. So I'm gonna take my black marker and I'm gonna look at our poster. So the first word is shell. I'm gonna go back to my picture, and inside of the snail shell, I'm gonna label by writing the word shell. The shell is the hard part that protects the snail's body. It's almost like the snail's home. It protects them. Next, we learned about the snail's foot. The foot is the bottom part of its body that helps the snail move. Next, we learned that snails have mouths. So I'm gonna draw my little mouth and label it. Snails use their mouth to eat just like we do. And last but not least, we learned that snails have tentacles. You can label however you want. I'm gonna label both of them. All right, and we learned that the tentacles help the snail sense what's around them. Now, the last part of my project is to cut my snail out. And again, if you don't have scissors, that's okay. You can, this is a beautiful job, just keeping it right on the paper. I would love to see that. But if you want to, you can go ahead and cut your snail out around the lines of your drawing. Being super careful, using your excellent cutting skills. Maybe you have an adult with you to help you. You can go in between the tentacles, all the way around. And then go down around the head and then up all the way around the shell. Almost there. All right, so here is my finished project. My little snail friend, and I labeled all of the important parts that we learned about in our reading. Now, if you would like, if you get this project done, I would love to see a picture of you with your snail on your class dojo. That would be so cool to see. I'm going to show you a picture of me with mine right now. All right, my kindergarten scientists, I hope you had an awesome time learning about the land and water snails in our science book today. And if you get to your project, I hope you had a fun time recreating this. Make sure you just label the different parts that we learned about. That's the most important part. And you can decorate it however you want. This is your snail. And like I said, if you are able to, upload your picture with your snail project onto your class dojo. I would love to see it. I will talk to you guys next time. I hope you have an awesome rest of the day.